So in this video, we're going to talk about Labour really in a very chaotic situation. There's a lot of infighting going on, not just from the usual characters, but more so on the fact that I don't think Labour actually knows what its policy is on trans people. I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert on the issue of trans people. It's not one I'm going to wade into per se. Yes, it's cowardly for me to not do so, but it's definitely not my area of expertise and something I'm going to have to do a lot more learning on before I make any kind of judgment on it. In terms of the arguments that should people born as men who transition to being women, should they be allowed into female only areas? That's a question that a lot of women seem to be concerned about. Me, I'm generally not too bothered about things, but I'm not a woman in one of these areas, so it's not my kind of place to say, if that makes sense. But it is this person's, the leader of Young Labour, Jess Barnard, who Labour apologised to her for putting her under investigation for perceived hostile or prejudiced behaviour. This was the thing here, under this very long statement of possible things she could have been, she could have violated, basically. And what happened was she said she has no time for TERFs, essentially, which stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminists, a term sometimes used by campaigners for trans rights to describe their opponents. She took an aim at a Labour councillor, telling him, "I won't be intimidated into giving transphobes energy." And this is a huge problem in the Labour Party at the moment, where the Labour Party is essentially torn between these TERFs and non-TERFs, I suppose, with Rosie Duffield being the real standard bearer for the TERFs group. Rosie Duffield has called for Starmer to meet with her and other female Labour MPs to discuss the party's policy on transgender issues, confirming she will not attend Labour's annual conference over worries she could face abuse over her views on the subject. She's saying, "I took a decision a few weeks ago." She goes, "I didn't want to be the centre of attention." Well, if you didn't want to be the centre of attention, you wouldn't have mentioned it. You would have reduced your tweeting around this time, because you know your views are controversial. That's what you would have done, but you didn't, because you want to be the centre of attention. She's saying, this is Keir Starmer's first conference speech since the pandemic. I think it's really important we focus on that and the policies that emerged from conference. I really did not want to be the news story. I mean, you really did, though, didn't you? You really did. Saying that she'd received some pretty unpleasant threats online, which don't threaten people, just don't. And was in contact with the police. Duffield said her worry was mainly about being targeted at the conference, which begins on Sunday. It's hard to know how serious to take the threats, but you can see Labour's torn on this, and I don't know how much the conference will show. Labour actually doing well in a YouGov poll, but that was on the 3rd of September. They're actually doing a lot worse now. I was going to give you guys some good news for once, but that didn't happen. And, Keir Starmer has actually met with Rosie Duffield to talk about this. I wonder what they said, because Labour typically is meant to be a party that supports marginalised people. Trans people are definitely marginalised if you look at the death rates. But the question is, what do Labour stand for on this? And again, this is another thing where Labour have no actual policies on this. If I had the chance to actually, talk to Labour MPs or Labour councillors or whatever, I would want to ask them, what are Labour's stance on trans rights? No doubt they wouldn't have an answer on it. So it's very frustrating. Further to that, there were potential changes to the leadership structure. Essentially Starmer wanted to go back to the Electoral College, which gave a 1/3 vote to MPs, 1/3 to unions, and 1/3 to the members, that was changed under Ed Miliband to a one member, one vote policy, which I think is a lot more democratic. People like James O'Brien have and Northern Skeletor have issues with that. But what I'd say is, why would we care about the point of view a load of career politicians anyways, who mainly just care about themselves? If they can't win over a load of Labour members, what chance do they have? If Ed Miliband could do it, Ed Miliband won with the trade unions. Keir Starmer managed to wow the Labour members. He won an outright, I don't know actually how much he won by, but he beat Rebecca Long Bailey to the punch, essentially, through the Labour members. I don't understand, it's a bit stupid. It's a bit stupid, to be honest, especially in your first move to try and change the voting system, which tells me that Starmer does fear a leadership challenge, because if he didn't, he would do this next year. And my point being is that, even BBC Newsnight talking about how the leadership rule change was there to help Jeremy Corbyn when that rule change also helped Keir Starmer. The trade unions didn't back it. Essentially, it was scrapped. Keir Starmer, forced into humiliating retreat over the leadership changes, so he had to change that. Rayner also confirmed that the Labour will walk in this back, which is really embarrassing, especially since conference is meant to start officially on Sunday. It's a joke, and I wanted to bring you guys better news, but I just saw this as well, which is that Labour have gone back down in the polls, which is sad, to be honest. The Lib Dems doing okay, which makes me sad as well to an extent, because I really don't like them. My dislike of the Lib Dems should be well known at this point. If you don't know why, then I'll give you 9,000 reasons why. But absolute joke. The Greens are doing okay, which is good, but Labour struggling. Was this anything relevant? Yes. Starmer's speech, which is a load of filler. Sorry, his essay. If you look at the bullet points here, right, we will always put hard-working families and their priorities first. What about people that have disabilities? People that can't work? People that can't put in the hours because they've got kids or family to look after? Carers, unpaid carers. Should they not be put first? Really? If you work hard and play by the rules, you should be rewarded fairly. I mean, what does that even mean? It reminds me of the burning injustices of Theresa May. People and businesses are expected to contribute to society as well as receive. Okay, Jeff Bezos could argue, well, I do contribute to society because I create loads of jobs. Fair enough, I don't pay tax, but I contribute to society, so, and I also receive from society. So, it's a joke. Your chance in life should not be defined by your circumstances of your birth. Hard work and how you contribute should matter. Okay, I mean, this is sounding very conservative. Very conservative. Families and communities and the things that bring us together must once again be put above individualism, okay? That's a bit more kind of, collectivist kind of thinking, that the society comes above the individual, okay? Bit more Aristotle in there, fine. The economy should work for citizens and communities. It is not good enough just to surrender to market forces. Great. What are you going to do to stop the economy falling to market forces, like we're seeing with energy cost increases, like we're seeing with certain sectors, that deserve pay rises, getting pay rises, but not pay rises across the board? What are you going to do about that? Nothing. The role of government is to be a partner to private enterprise, not stifle it. So again, this is more kind of Blairite towards it, saying we're there to partner private enterprise, make sure they do okay. But surely private enterprise will argue we need less rules and lower wages so that we can progress. Stifling our progress is all these rules and regulations. No? The government should treat taxpayer money as if it were their own. The current levels of waste are unacceptable. I mean, okay, that's fine, but then that goes against Keynesian economics, because if you're going to use your own money, you would typically save as much as you can. You'd be as frugal as possible. When you're struggling financially, the government can't do that. The government has to spend to get its way out of deficits. The government has to spend to get its way out of a crisis. It's very unique in that circumstance. The government can print its own money. The public can't. So this right here is another joke point. The government must play its role in restoring honesty, decency, and transparency to public life. I mean, are you going to be transparent about your policies and not more what's called wash your content? Sorry, that's not the phrase I want to use, but just stuff that could mean a range of different things, really vague platitudes and cliches. We are proudly patriotic, but we reject the divisiveness of nationalism. Fine, okay, but how do you draw the line between nationalism and patriotism? You didn't explain that. Very, boring, cliche essay, 1,400 words, or a lot of different news outlets have come out with different amounts to however long the essay was, which I find bizarre, but a waste of everyone's time. And something, he sounds very much like David Cameron. Starmer saying if you work hard and play by the rules, you should be rewarded fairly. David Cameron saying you are rewarded you are rewarded for working hard and doing the right thing. Like, it's the Spider-Man meme. That's what this is. It's just very much Theresa May, that kind of ilk where it can mean anything. The burning injustices, all that nonsense. Starmer's got an absolute mountain to climb. I'm hoping to do a live stream at some point with my friend. We should talk about this stuff, really. how Labour have a massive, they are rudderless at the moment. There are no ideas, no policies. You got Ed Miliband talking about common ownership of utilities. Like, which ones? All of them? What's common ownership mean anyways? Are we going to nationalise it? What does that mean? I don't know, and that's what frustrates me about the Labour Party. You've got people frontbenchers saying the Conservatives need to get a grip of the current HGV driver shortage. What does that mean? Get a grip of it. What do you want them to do? I don't understand, and that's what worries me about the Labour Party the most. This video is slightly premature. I mean, conference is still yet to happen properly, but you've got Angela Rayner talking about fair wages and all this stuff. What does that mean? I don't understand. Like, how do you define fair? Because you would define a fair wage differently to how your manager or your boss would describe it. It doesn't make any sense, and that's what's frustrating me beyond all, really. Like, what are you talking about? When Theresa May talked about burning injustices, CEO pay and all this stuff, that was far less vague than some of the stuff the Labour Party are talking about here. And, just to kind of sum up, the Labour Party have a massive mountain to climb on. What do they actually stand for? What is Starmerism? And also, what do they believe on trans rights? Because there's a split in the party, specifically, I think, among white female Labour MPs regarding trans issues. There's a massive... I think there is a bit of a split there, and Starmer needs to figure out where does the Labour Party stand on that. Because there are a lot of younger people who do care a lot about these issues. It's not just younger people, obviously, but I think it's mainly younger people that care a lot about, the issues of trans rights, and Labour need to figure out what they're about. Luckily, it's just more of an internal story than anything. I don't think the broader public care too much about trans issues. But at the same time, it is still another rift in the party that Starmer at some point needs to figure out how to mend, essentially. And he can't do it by caving to one side, because the other side will, ding him for it. He can't compromise on this one. It's a very difficult situation. Glad I'm not, glad I don't work for the Labour Party, to be fair, when it comes to stuff like this. But, anyways, I've rambled on for a while. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Hopefully Labour, do better in the polls after the conference, because if they don't, then they are in a world of trouble. Boris Johnson, people talk about how bad Corbyn was, and that's fine, but, if it's the case, like, I think it was Tony Blair who said any other leader would be 20 points ahead right now. Where are the 20 points? Can I see the 20 points? Are they hiding somewhere? Is 32? Because Corbyn wasn't on 12. So where are the 20 points? Any competent leader? If anything, Boris Johnson is in a far more kind of open position now, kind of, openly in terms of, his policies have come to fruition now. All those promises didn't happen. So surely the Labour leadership should be doing a lot better than they are now, no? When all of those things Boris Johnson promised in 2019 haven't happened. There's no US deal. The Australia deal is terrible. There's a massive HGV driver shortage. There's a petrol shortage right now. Energy prices are going sky high. Surely any Labour Party should be doing great right now. So where are the 20 points? Starmer's favourability is not the highest. Neither is Johnson's yet. The Conservative Party are still doing well in the polls. I don't get it. Maybe the British public like punishment, but surely any other Labour leader should be well ahead of the polls. Should be well up in the polls right now. But that's not going to happen. And if Labour don't pick up probably around 5 or 6 points potentially after conference, then I don't know where that leaves them, because the Tories are most likely going to call an early general election next year. I think they will. So the question is, how are Labour going to combat that? Because they've got no ideas. There's nothing there, and it scares me. Because if they lose again, that's going to be looking at well over 15 years of Tory rule at that point. That's horrifying. It really is, especially given the damage they've already done to the country. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.